Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure.
So, Sue, today I'm going to bring up the topic, something that I'm experiencing and wonder if you have, and it's a fire evacuation. Have you ever had a fire evacuation yourself?
No, the closest we've got was, we had a whole bunch of fires back in 2020 and then multiple years, the smaller ones near our area. And so you have to have a go box. We've gotten to the place where we've had to have a go box ready to go. And we've talked about what we'll do in case of an evacuation. I've talked about it with my daughter as well. So, you need to have some of those discussions on the regular, so you know what to anticipate.
Interesting, because living up there with you in those fire zone years, especially, it never occurred to me to prepare in the valley of urban area.
hmm
Um, Never had. And I'm wondering what prompted to me that seems like an area of safety, but you're right. Of course, we're surrounded by grasses that could take off at any moment.
Oh, and it's gotten worse too because of the drought and because of the fact that people aren't watering their lawns. People are getting rid of their lawns. But it's climate change. Things have changed. And we've had Santa Rosa, for example, the fire swept through the city of,
That's
Santa Rosa,
true.
and then you see the Paradise Fire. It destroyed the whole town. And you get trapped, and there's no roads out. So there's serious stuff going on. It's not all climate change too. It's also like PG&E. Their substation set off, not a substation, the wire set off the fire. You just don't know what's going to happen, and if you don't have a way out, I remember when I first moved to California, the thing to be prepared for that everyone said, and I'm always such the Girl Scout, have to be prepared, was earthquakes. And so you need to have your earthquake preparedness. You're supposed to have your water, a way, nowadays you'd have some way to charge your phone, lanterns or candles, things like that. Then of course your medications, your dog food, and all the things that you have to have ready. So, Tina, I'm looking at you. You're back home. You were you were evacuated and now you're back. So, ugh, should we launch into the story of what happened?
I think what I want to share and start in with is the decision to evacuate. Uh, and this is going to go now back to the Paradise Fire. So my godparents, who were in their, late 90s when the Paradise Fire happened, actually they were passed. It was my godparents' son and daughter-in-law that had taken over living in that home. And I had decided, like a year after, to go back and visit it, knowing that the whole thing had burned down. And it was eerie because it's a very lush town. It has tons of vegetation and really about the size of where I'm living. And all that was left of my godparents' home was the pond that my 90-year-old, he was like 95 when he decided to build a pond. And that was all that was left. A couple of garden art things, but it was leveled and everything around there was leveled. Like it was almost a challenge to find how to find the house. But the thing that stood out in my mind the most was the evacuation of one road, because I believe that's part of what happened to Paradise is there was one way out.
Yeah.
So here I am in this mountain valley, and it was the same thing: two down, one to go.
Now hold it. Hang on, back up. Hang on, back up. You mean in your current situation, there are three roads in and out, and two were down, and only one
Yes,
left. Okay.
yes. And they had only ordered evacuations for the farthest end of town. The rest, we were still under warning status. And I was actually the closest to the exit. But because I had seen this for myself, and that, yes, in fact, it isn't just this story, truly, an entire town can be wiped out. People do burn up in their cars if they can't escape in time. I was like not willing to risk it. And I was surprised at how many people were willing to just put their faith in everything. And my neighbor and Maria and I just decided, well, mostly me, that I'm not going to be that person that in the
Good.
event that somebody has a car accident, it's over for
Yeah.
us and we can't leave.
Good.
And I think what will happen is that if it does change, which it can so fast, there
Mm-hmm.
was another fire down here that was actually behind the time of ours and then way surpassed it and took out structures.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know. Weather is huge and you don't know the conditions. So I wasn't willing to gamble. You know, a life is different from a gambling situation.
Yeah.
So that's what made up my mind.
I'm so glad and I'm so proud of you for making that decision because you're doing it for not just yourself, but for everyone else involved and everyone else you touch. You're a good role model for that. And that's the responsible thing to do because the first responders and firefighters have to come and help you then. If you're not there to have to be helped, then you're doing even more than just helping
That's
yourself.
so excellently true.
Well,
Yes.
it's crazy. We've learned so much about fires now recently because they are so just part of everyday life. I remember, I was teaching and you had to stay inside. The fires were so bad, not right where we were, but enough and huge fires that the air quality was just obscene. You could feel it. You could feel it in your lungs. You could feel it in
And
your
see it
eyes. Yes, of course you could.
falling from the sky.
Yes, it was on the ashes on the ground. It's on your car. It's real, and you know that you're inhaling that stuff. So it's that bad. Kids would have to stay in from being outdoors for weeks at a time. It's crazy the impact that it has on your life and your psyche in the moment and then everywhere thereafter. You know, it's interesting to me that seeing what you saw in Paradise made it so easy for you to make that decision. So for people who
Yes.
haven't personally had a connection someplace that's burnt down or gone there, I wonder if that's going to make that decision or not. Because I mean, I have no problem packing up and going.
Well, I want to share the thing that reinforced my thought and will put me in that car again. So as we were driving, it was a stream of traffic, more traffic on this road than there typically is, but we were still moving. And in front of us, about four cars, was a big, huge motorhome. And it had a car on the back. And the way out of this town, it's like these are pin curves, like super, super sharp and very, very steep. And it was impossible for the motorhome to stay in his lane. So he honked his horn to avoid getting into a head on as he's going down the windy road. And if anybody had come up speeding in a panic, they wouldn't have had time to stop. There would have been a head on collision. We would have been stuck in traffic, and again, think about it. It's a 2-lane road with hairpin curves. So there's nothing but a cliff off to your right or a mountain steep to your left. And you would just be sitting there. And that's where I realized that's probably what happened in that Paradise Fire is people are panicked, they get into a head-on, an accident happens, and so the line is so congested, it's a traffic jam. So there's no option. You just sit there, or you could get out and try and run, but depending on when it's coming. So what I saw was it takes one
Yeah,
accident that will clog up that road and it's done.
yeah.
So if everybody would evacuate, then that would lower the amount of people who would be stuck in such a situation. The challenge then becomes where do you stay? How much money do you spend? And I didn't even think about these things. I have something called the California Fair Plan. So let's talk a little bit about this. I don't know if you know a thing about it, but moving back to my home here, all the insurance companies in the state of California decided that we don't want any more of this because of what happened in Santa Rosa and
Hmm.
Paradise, right? So it became like, now what? Oh my gosh, what do we do without fire insurance? Because it's likely. So we now have something called the California Fair Plan. Pause. Before I did this, I ended up going out of state and got an insurance company outside of the state of California who would insure me. But of course, they didn't want to insure after a while. So they were to drop. And that's where California Fair Plan stepped up. So I bought it. It's about $2,500 per year. And I think about that when I'm retired on a fixed income. It's a big change. Plus the taxes on my home. Before you know it, now I've pretty much still got a payment in order to live in my own home.
Mm-hmm.
That's another topic for
Mm-hmm.
another day. So uh, then I realized, if you're in the event of an evacuation, will they cover lodging? And now I haven't been ordered to evacuate. My house hasn't burned down. But in the meantime, while we're waiting, where do you stay? And that's a lot of out of pocket expense. And then try and take a Great Dane and a cat with you. So now we've got a whole other level of, where do you stay? Right. So luckily we had a couple options, and we stayed with my neighbor's friend down in LA. And we did have another offer with you. Thank you. But, I didn't want to be 9 hours away if I could return. Um, that's a big distance. So honestly, I don't know what will happen if this happens again. I really have to think this part through. But I just want you to know that the California Fair Plan, if you as a person were to call up and try and talk to them, it could take hours. Normally, when you're an insurance agent, you would be able to bypass that route because you're the agent, right? And you're working with California Fair Plan. Not the case. So my place is still through Farmers, based up in Sacramento, and they have to sit for hours on the phone to give me this information. And the California Fair Plan does not allow farmers access. So they have to actually talk to a person. So they spent hours trying to let me know how much it would be. And of course, the day went by and I still don't exactly know because they misquoted me. So I really don't know how much I've got in coverage and if they would even cover if my structure isn't burned. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, insurance costs, um, with the natural disasters, especially fires, have deeply impact. People can't even get insurance, and if they do through the supported ones, it's going to be just so expensive. It makes it unreasonable. People who've been affected by fires over here where we are, with the complex fires that we have over here, the property's burnt down and they're rebuilding. Some people are rebuilding in these areas, and you're just wondering, are they even getting insurance? I don't know how that works, because maybe they got a claim for what burnt, but are they going to be able to get new insurance? Probably not. And do you want to live there? I mean, I understand the idea of, this is your land, this is your property, there's a tie to your home. I get that. And as things change, our weather, um, and the realities that we're confronting, and the inevitability of another fire taking you out is not um, unreal. I mean, it's kind of, could very well happen.
And irony, I would love to share this next thing. So, uh, growing up, especially in the 80s, we had a ton of earthquakes. And the fault line, we're right on or by the San Andreas Fault, which is the biggie. And in 1990, it was so bad that it took out almost everybody's old rock chimney. If you had an old, it's called a Maltby home. It's like the original homes. It was made by the miller who was up here. And they were all just knocked over. And some houses like fell off foundations. Well, isn't it interesting that just recently we're starting to have all these earthquakes again? And while I was down in Los Angeles, Malibu had the epicenter. It was only a 4.6, but I felt it. And I felt it up here right before the fire took off. And now I'm like, great. What I had learned before living up where we were with you, um, it was something like a $30,000 deductible, and I had to spend like an incredible amount of thousands per year. It was so large to me that I thought, forget it, I'm not going to do earthquake. But as I've been down here, my neighbor had told me he spends about 5. I want to look into that because I didn't get that small of a quote. I got about another 1,500 for earthquake insurance. But again, it goes down to, what is the deductible? And if it's $100,000, is it worth it? No. So that's a whole other thing to look into. But wow, that's a lot. And I don't want to leave this place for anything, but do I want to live as I get older for the rest of my life in this constant zone of, I'm going to burn down and I'm trapped in this little island? Do I want to think about earthquake, because we're prone to it. This is Southern California. I don't think it's going away. And as much as I love it here, like, wow, is this the right place? Over time. Anyway, just bringing it up.
That's a good question, and I wonder if the people of Pompeii asked the same thing.
Wow.
Tina, I want to share with our listeners what we know about this fire that affected you. So, in looking it up, it's called the Line Fire. And this information comes from www.fire.ca.gov. So it's the official government page. As of today, they're saying the damage inspection teams are working in the fire area. So far, they've identified 4 structures that were damaged and 1 that was destroyed. Their inspections include residences, multifamily dwellings, outbuildings, and commercial buildings. Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that the California National Guard will support the state's ongoing response to the Line Fire. Through its activation authorized under the Line Fire, the California National Guard has deployed 4 Black Hawk helicopters for water bucket dropping operations, 2 C-130 aircraft with modular airborne firefighting systems, 4 20-person hand crews, that's 80 soldiers, 1 military police company to support the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department with traffic control points in evacuated areas. So that's that. They're also saying that as of today, there were cloudy skies, fog, and trace amounts of rain over the Line Fire area Sunday night into Monday morning. Strong southwesterly winds gusting 25 miles an hour on the ridges and upper slopes fueled active fire behavior where the heat still exists. The fire is still smoldering and creeping in dry vegetation. Firefighters are continuing building and strengthening control lines and mopping up hot spots. So it's this is what we hear. It takes a while. I'm not sure how much contained it is. At one point, they said 42%.
Correct.
And that's when you hear 42% contained, you're like, well, that's not even half, So
It's funny because your perspective really changes when it was like 0% for a while and 3%. And now at 42, you're like, whoo, man, we're coming out of the woods. So each day you just look for it to keep going up. But it is funny that when you live here, and I don't know if that's delusional thinking, you kind of drop your guard and you feel like you're safe because it is moving upwards. But the truth is, I think we all are suppressing the reality that at any moment this could change. So I just want you to know that all of my bags are currently in the spare bedroom ready to go. I haven't unpacked. My underwear is still down there. I'm ready because
so
you just don't know.
Good. Did you use a prepared list or did you just, put it together yourself?
Well, interestingly enough, I think it was 2 years ago. It was Twilight Zone. Let me tell you, there was another fire on the back ridge of our mountain. And this one leveled me because I could see the flames at the top of my ski area, like see the flames.
Right.
And it was Twilight Zone-y because I actually had to rush down to the county office, which is just like right up the street was the ski slope, and everybody's acting calm. Everybody was in the entire city. The schools were still in session and everybody's just going on as if everything were normal. And I'm like, this is not normal. There are flames. Like, how do we pretend this isn't happening? And so I rushed into the office because I had to prove that my roof was redone so that I wouldn't get dropped from the fire insurance again. So I was able to get the paperwork that it was in fact permitted and all of it. But the point is, I felt like I was living a true Twilight Zone movie because no one was moving. No one was nervous. No one was talking about it. And what's odd this time, Sue, after leaving and coming back, I felt a sense of it myself. Like I go to the grocery store and the smoke is still coming in over the lake. You can hardly see it. I'm still laughing with the grocery clerk. I'm getting my, food for the day. And I was like, oh my God, I become that. I'm like the one who's now feeling like, it's out there happening, and yet you don't want to go there. It's kind of a very psychologically odd place to be. But I feel like I've now jumped to the other crazy side. But not. I think what it is it's like a browser in the back of your computer, and it's actually draining a lot of energy to pretend that it's not happening and having no control over the situation. I just had to share that piece with you.
Well,
That
and that's the interesting part. This is, it's interesting hearing this because it's like, how do you deal with the reality of a disaster? I mean, you're still under evacuation warning. And
yes,
so you're you need to be prepared and you're making decisions, you need to be informed, so in the meantime, life goes on, right?
it has to.
Are kids in school right now?
I thought they were all going to be back, but I drove by town today. I decided to go on a loop around the lake, and no, the schools are not back.
Yeah.
And I thought that they were going to be. So no, they have not resumed.
When it's that
Um,
serious, you know that you got to be prepared at a moment's notice.
and one thing that's really interesting up here, we have a lot of Forest Service cabins, and for people that don't know, it's like you own the home on the land, but the land is owned by the Forest Service. So it's never really yours. It's a 99-year lease. And I noticed as I was approaching the dam where all the old homes are, there were all these yellow papers. And so I decided to pull over and read. And the government has decided that no one can be in those homes, which of course makes sense, because it's a Forest Service land property and they want to be able to do with that land as they must, so that you can't reside there at this time. But that says a lot too.
Mhm.
Those haven't been lifted. People aren't going back into those homes, and
Right.
the government has control over them, really. So no school, people can't go into their cabins. We have not a tourist up here, which they shouldn't be. But now I'm coming at this from a different perspective as well. The COVID thing. How are these? We all live on tourism. This is the whole point of this town. That's where our base economy is. And so now all the restaurants, like all the souvenir shops, all the marinas, they're dry right now. So it's hard. So it's going to be a hard thing on the economy because it's a whole, at least a week where this is not allowed people up here to support. And I think about the people that are on the edge, that are so close. Like this could be the thing that shuts down all these
Yeah,
places.
makes or break, especially like you say, coming back after the COVID impact. That leads us to the next conversation. I wanted to say this is the line fire. It's called that way because if you didn't know, when the first call comes into 911, they base it on the location or the name of whatever's reported. So this is from Baseline Road, and so this is why it's called the line fire. It has been documented that it was started because of an arson. And this dude had apparently gone on a spree of at least three other fires in the San Bernardino, LAOC area. And this brings us to what you just said. People right on the line losing their livelihood. I mean, we've got that going on. We've got, just the health concerns, the immediate health concerns, the long-term health concerns, the economic concerns, no schools, the impact that it has, as you were saying, tourism. So when tourists who potentially would go to that area go, oh, well, there's a fire danger. I'm not going to this. I'll just go to the coast or something instead. So the impact, not just now, but long term, trauma, fear in yourselves, in your children that will go over their lifetime, in your animals, your pets, not just pets, but animals, your livestock, or whatever else. The trauma that, it goes on and on.
So one of the things, and I haven't heard yet if they connected him. There are three major ones. One is, I think it the airport fire,
Hmm.
and then there's the bridge fire, and then there's this fire. Those are the three big
Okay.
ones going on down now. And I wonder if he's connected to all three. But I did think immediately it was arson when the other one that took off, because it's another little mountain village town. And I just thought, how intentional was it? And to specifically target touristic towns. And then I was thinking about, it's bigger than like a serial killer. Like, I
Yeah.
realized
Yeah.
the amount that's impacted is even greater than a serial killer. I
Mm-hmm.
never thought about how, like you just said, you covered all of it. It affects the schools. I think about my neighbor up the street. She's in her late 80s,
Mm-hmm.
and she's on an oxygen tank.
Yep.
So she had to evacuate even before all this because she can't breathe. And I think about all the other elderly people. And what if there is nowhere to evacuate to? What does this? So she dies in her own home from the smoke. I mean, so I realize it impacts, and all the forest animals, like
Yes.
lives.
Yes.
It's so big what an arsonist can do. And then I think, well, why would you do it? And I guess it's just the need for power, fame, I
Insanity.
meanness,
Yeah.
anger, rage at
Yeah.
humanity. I don't know. Be interesting to dissect an arsonist's
Well,
mind.
that's the part that really just enrages me because, just the impact of, um, okay, personally, I don't get my income for this, or for a kid, okay, I don't get to go to school this week. I'm going to have to extend the school year, or they cut some days off in the school year. A kid might go, oh, that's okay. But we know all those things impact their learning. And then also, they're home all day, they're with their parents, they're afraid. Are they afraid to go to sleep? Yeah, and that turns into fears that they're going to hold on to or may hold on to all their lives. They have to deal with those traumas. You know, injury to firefighters and
Oh,
the
yeah.
emergency
Right.
responders. Things that you think like, or your 80-year-old uh, neighbor who had to evacuate. Where does she go? How inconvenient is it? Is that bed going to be comfortable? She's not going to sleep. I mean, just the little minutia of the reality of how it hits each person. It's such an offensive thing that this person has done, and to have done it on purpose, it's so unexcusable. I'm so glad that the person's not out on bail. They should be held. And as you said, like a serial murder, this is a life sentence for me. You need to
For
be
me
locked up
too.
forever. You're done. You're
Me
done.
too. That's how I feel too. And I used to think, like, until this has impacted me and made me think, I used to think a serial killer was like the worst thing. Now I'm like, no, I think it's actually the arsonist.
Yeah.
It's the arsonist. It's
Yeah.
such a selfish act.
Well, I would say it's on par. So, and but the thing with the fire is that it's so large. I mean, the impact on lives, but we're talking 39,000 acres of land, and like you say, the animals and the wildlife there, and the scar that it does. I mean, the fires that we had in 2020, in our area over by the lakes and in that area, it still looks like a battle war zone over there. There are little shrubs of green, but trees standing there, all burnt and pointing to the skies, all black. Um, it looks like a post-apocalyptic landscape still. I mean, it's insane.
And the other fire that's, I think it's 5% contained, the bridge fire, that's the one that surpassed us, and actually burned a number of structures. That one, I think at least as last night, was 5% contained, but Sue, it's 52,000.
Oh my
So
word.
collectively, we've hit 90,000. And then the one that's in Orange County is like another 25,000. And that
Yeah.
is in an urban area more, but that's where all the structures have burned down the most.
Yeah.
And you just think, you put that in there, that's 120,000 acres.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that's a lot of land.
It is. We had those fires over in our area, and they were totaled over 1 million acres of land. I mean, I can't even conceive of what a million acres looks like, let
Oh
alone
my gosh,
40,000
this is only
acres.
1/10.
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
and but still, it shows you the impact of what this has had. This is fire after fire, year after year, all
I
over the state
know.
of California. Now you're hearing about it up in Canada. Although,
Yeah,
you
I
can't
heard that too.
you can't include these though. This is arson. This is a whole different story than, there was an accidental one. Okay, I'm not going to excuse what
Lightning
happened with
strike.
PG&E. I'm sorry. But, lightning strike is just, an act of nature. Uh, But when it's done on purpose, it's just inexcusable to the nth degree. Final thoughts on your evacuation.
I can tell you final feelings.
Yeah, thank you.
I realized as I came home, just this gratitude that I could, that the hardest thing is to leave and think this could be it. And the gratitude to come home and see it. And every home that I grew up with still here was a deep down appreciation for, hey, I'm alive and so is my home still here. And as we've talked multiple times, this isn't just a home for me. This has kind of like been a battle to come back into myself after divorce, after the things I've been through, moving away from this house and this community. So it's been a long, hard climb back in. So it's not just any house. If this burns down, it will be a sadness, but a profound sadness. And I don't know that I would move back here if every tree was burned down, because it's the trees that make it my home too. The trees that I grew up with, they got bigger as I grew bigger, you know? So my final thoughts are just feelings of gratitude. Hey, I'm still here. I'm taking it each day as it comes. And I also know I am a survivor. So whatever happens, I will be safe. And if my house is not here, I know that there is something positive around the corner. That's what life has taught me post divorce, really, is that life is difficult, but as you get through to the other side, more often than not, it's better than it was. So I'm going with that.
Good. Stay safe. That wraps up this episode of Retired. Thanks for listening.
Until next week, please feel free to lend your feedback or ask questions by emailing us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. You're invited to follow us on Facebook at Retired Podcast New Tread. Check the show notes for links and contact information.
Retired is co-hosted by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Please click to subscribe so that you won't miss your chance to join our Retired Road Trip.